A doctor ran over a boy, and when she went to help him, she saw that he was wearing the same necklace as her deceased son. She takes him to the hospital and says that, in the bustling city of Seattle, where the constant sound of rain served as a familiar soundtrack, pediatrician Dr. Emily Harris was wrapping up another long day at the children's hospital. The hallways, lit by fluorescent lamps, exuded a scent of disinfectant and echoed with the hurried footsteps of nurses. Emily, though surrounded by life and hope, carried a personal shadow that kept her from finding peace. It was night when Emily drove home, the sound of the rain gently drumming on the car roof. She was lost in thought, immersed in memories of a painful past she always tried to avoid. As she approached a poorly lit intersection, a sudden silhouette appeared in front of her vehicle. The screech of brakes resounded as Emily swiftly swerved, but she couldn't avoid the collision. "My God, are you all right?" Emily exclaimed, rushing out of the car and running to the young man on the ground. The young man, gasping but conscious, began to rise. With tousled brown hair and light eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and pain, he replied, "Yes, I'm fine. Just a scare." Emily helped him up, noticing a necklace hanging around his neck that looked strangely familiar. Her heart nearly stopped as she recognized the unique pendant, identical to one she had given to her long-lost son. Curiosity and guilt mingled as she asked, "Where did you get this necklace?" The young man looked at her, puzzled, but before he could answer, Emily noticed he was injured. "Let's go to the hospital. I'll make sure you're okay," she insisted, her determination replacing hesitation. As they headed to the hospital, Emily's mind buzzed with questions. That necklace was a relic from the past, a lost connection that now became a mystery she was determined to solve. "What's your name?" she asked as she drove. Ethan Parker," he responded, looking out the window, visibly uncomfortable. "Sorry about this, Ethan. I was distracted. We'll find out more about this necklace once you're better, okay?" said Emily, trying to offer some reassurance. Ethan just nodded, still processing what had happened. Emily, meanwhile, was torn between professional responsibility and the emotional storm that the sight of the necklace had triggered. The hospital was approaching, and with it, the promise of answers Emily longed to find. She knew the road ahead could be painful, but a new determination guided her to uncover the truth behind this mysterious encounter. At the hospital, Emily anxiously waited while Ethan, the young cyclist, was examined. The waiting room was quiet, except for the soft hum of fans. She felt restlessness growing within her, her mind wrestling between the present reality and painful memories of the past. Passing by the room where Ethan was being cared for, she observed him discreetly, seeing in him a reflection of something familiar. A flash of memory brought back the image of her husband, Jack, holding an identical pendant when they planned their future together. "Will he be okay?" Emily asked the nurse beside her. "Yes, he just has some scrapes. Nothing serious," the nurse replied, offering a reassuring smile. Emily felt relieved, but the question of the necklace still bothered her. She knew she needed to act, but also feared the answers she might find. At home, the rain continued to beat against the windows, providing a melancholic soundtrack for the night. Emily took refuge in her room, where a wooden box held memories of a time she feared to remember. Yellowed photographs, old letters, and among them, a photo of Jack holding the necklace. The pain of losing Jack and their children returned, overwhelming in its intensity. "It could be a coincidence, but I need to know more about this boy," she murmured to herself, determined. Emily's resolve to uncover the truth reignited a flame of hope she didn't know she still had. She knew she had to find the woman who raised Ethan. The next day, with the sun struggling to break through heavy clouds, Emily set out for the Parker residence. She was ready to face her past and the uncertain future that this encounter could unleash. In the morning, Emily brewed strong coffee, the aroma spreading through the kitchen like a temporary balm for her concerns. She revisited the box of memories, picking up the photo of Jack with tenderness and resolve. "Jack, I hope you're guiding me in this," she whispered, slipping the photo into her coat pocket. Before leaving, she made a mental list of what she needed to ask Olivia, knowing that this meeting would be crucial. Olivia was Ethan's mother. At least that's what Emily read on Ethan's hospital file. Anxiety was present, but the need for answers propelled her forward, one step at a time. Emily paused to observe the rain through the window. Each drop seemed to tell a story of longing and hope. She took a deep breath and, with determined steps, left the house, ready to face whatever the day held. Emily parked in front of the Parker residence, a modest but welcoming home that reflected simplicity and human warmth. She had obtained their address through a colleague who checked the hospital records. Hesitating for a moment before leaving the car, she adjusted her coat against the chilly wind that rustled the tree leaves. Taking a deep breath, she ascended the porch steps and rang the doorbell. Olivia Parker opened the door, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile and eyes that sparkled with kindness. "How are you, Olivia? I'm Dr. Harris, the doctor who was with Ethan last night," began Emily, extending her hand. Olivia shook her hand firmly, gesturing for Emily to sit on the sofa. "Of course, Dr. Harris. I was worried when he didn't come home on time. But I heard it was an accident, and I'm grateful you took care of him." Emily nodded, noting the sincerity in Olivia's face. "I wanted to learn a bit more about Ethan. He mentioned that you adopted him?" Olivia sighed, her eyes softening as she thought of her son. "Yes, I found Ethan when he was just a baby. He was left at the church doorstep, a little miracle at an unexpected moment in my life." The story deeply moved Emily, but she needed to know more. "Do you have any idea about the necklace he wears? He mentioned it came with him when he was found." Olivia paused, her fingers nervously interlocking. "Actually, no. I always thought it was an amulet left by his parents, a kind of connection to his past." Emily pondered Olivia's words, feeling closer to understanding the truth. "I think there might be more to that necklace than we thought. It could be a key to Ethan's past." Olivia watched Emily, intrigued by the determination in her eyes. "Why is that necklace so important to you, Dr. Harris?" Emily took a deep breath, carefully choosing her words. "Because it might be linked to my own past, to something I lost a long time ago. I'm trying to piece together a story that led me here." The conversation left Olivia thoughtful. There was a silent understanding between the two women, united in the search for answers that could change their lives. Emily left the Parker home with more questions than answers, but also with an unexpected ally in her quest for the truth. Back at the hospital, Emily immersed herself in the routine of consultations and emergencies, but her mind couldn't stray from the enigma involving Ethan and the necklace. During a break, she decided to visit the laboratory for concrete answers. The sterile, brightly lit environment contrasted with the storm of emotions inside her. Emily asked the lab technician to perform a DNA test on a sample she had discreetly collected from Ethan. She knew she was crossing an ethical line, but the need for answers was overwhelming. While waiting for the results, Emily secluded herself in her office, reviewing old files about the plane crash that had taken Jack's life, and presumably their children's. Finally, the technician appeared with the results, his grave expression indicating that something unusual had been found. Emily opened the envelope with trembling hands, reading the data that confirmed a genetic link with Ethan. The shock was accompanied by a wave of hope and confusion. "Is this possible?" she whispered to herself, trying to process the magnitude of the discovery. She knew she had to tell Ethan about the test, but how to approach such a delicate matter? Emily decided to find Ethan in the hospital, where he was undergoing physical therapy to recover from the minor injuries caused by the accident. Finding him in the rehabilitation room, she observed him interacting with the physiotherapist, noting his resilience and determination. Carefully, she approached and waited for a pause to speak with him. "Ethan, can we talk for a moment?" she asked, gesturing to a quieter corner of the room. He nodded, curious and somewhat apprehensive. "Sure, Dr. Harris. What's it about?" Emily chose her words carefully, knowing this revelation could change everything. "I conducted a DNA test to understand more about your past. And there's a connection between us." Ethan frowned, trying to grasp what she was saying. "Connection? What do you mean?" Emily took a deep breath, facing the moment with honesty. "I believe you might be my son. The necklace, the story of how you were found. Everything points to it." Silence fell between them as Ethan processed the revelation. He was in shock, struggling to accept the idea that altered the foundation of his identity. Emily waited patiently, offering space for him to absorb the news. "This is a lot to take in all at once," he finally said, his voice shaking with the new reality unfolding before him. Emily nodded, understanding the complexity of what they were facing. "I know, Ethan, and I don't expect you to have all the answers right now. Just know that I'm here to help you discover everything we need to know." They stood there, united by uncertainty and the desire to explore this new path. Both knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but also filled with possibilities that could redefine their lives. Emily left the hospital that afternoon with a renewed weight on her heart. The confirmation that Ethan could be her son was both a mystery and a miracle she had never dared hope for. Yet, with this revelation came doubts and fears she needed to confront. Back at the hospital, she spent hours digging through old archives, looking for any clue about what really happened on the day of the plane crash. There were rumors at the time that something was amiss, but nothing had been proven. She knew she needed more than just hunches and blurry memories to face what was now before her. While rummaging through the files, she found a report mentioning an internal investigation into the mechanical failure that caused the crash. The report was incomplete, but it contained names of people who might know more about the case. One name in particular caught her attention: Victor Reynolds, a former colleague of Jack who worked at the airline. That night, Emily decided to reach out to Victor. He was one of the few people who could have insights into what really happened. After a few phone calls, she managed to arrange a meeting with him at a local cafe. When they met, Victor looked older, the passage of time visibly marked on his face. He greeted her with a firm handshake, but his eyes showed a hesitation she hadn't expected. "Emily, it's good to see you, despite the circumstances," began Victor, settling into his chair. "Victor, I need to know the truth about the accident. Something isn't right, and I feel you might be able to help me," said Emily, direct. Victor sighed deeply, his hands interlocked on the table. "There were rumors of sabotage, Emily. Jack was investigating some irregularities at the company, things that shouldn't have been happening." Emily caught her breath, reality beginning to take shape. "Do you think the crash was deliberate?" Victor nodded, his expression grim. "I don't have proof, but I heard conversations. Jack was an honest man, and he was about to expose something big. I think someone decided to silence him." The weight of Victor's words hung over them like a charged cloud. Emily thanked him for the information, knowing the road ahead would be dangerous, but determined to uncover the truth. "Are you willing to help me find evidence?" asked Emily, looking into Victor's eyes. He hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. "Yes, Emily. Jack was my friend, and he deserves justice." As she left the cafe, the sun was setting, staining the sky with shades of orange and purple. Emily knew that despite the uncertainties, she was closer to the truth than ever before. Victor's information thrust Emily into a new spiral of investigations. Back at the hospital, she decided to hire a private detective to help her gather more evidence about the possible sabotage. She needed concrete proof before she could confront whoever was behind it. While working in her office, she noticed a strange movement outside the window. A car was parked across the street, its lights blinking intermittently. A shadowy figure was inside, and Emily's instincts told her she was being watched. Ignoring the discomfort, she focused on the stack of documents in front of her. She needed to concentrate on what she could prove and how she could protect Ethan from any danger. The next day, the detective she had hired, a man named Mark, met her in a discreet cafe away from prying eyes. He brought an envelope filled with information that could change everything. "What do you have for me?" asked Emily, her anxiety evident in her voice. Mark handed her the envelope, his expression professional and impassive. "There are records of suspicious transactions at Jack's company before the accident. It seems someone was diverting funds, and Jack was about to report them." Emily examined the documents, the breadth of the betrayal nearly overwhelming. The evidence was piling up, pointing to a scheme far beyond what she had imagined. "And about the car that followed me?" she asked, her eyes fixed on Mark's. "It seems someone is interested in your movements, but don't worry, I'm on it," assured Mark, his voice firm. Emily felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She knew she was stepping into dangerous territory, but she also knew she couldn't back down now. The safety of Ethan and herself was now a priority, and she needed to act quickly. The threat was real, and the web of lies surrounding the accident was beginning to unravel. After the meeting, Emily stopped at a bookstore, seeking a temporary refuge amidst the chaos. As she browsed through the books, a message from Mark arrived on her phone. "Found another clue. Something big. Be careful." The silent determination that took hold of her was reinforced by the adrenaline of discovery. She needed to protect Ethan, uncover the entire truth, and confront whoever was behind Jack's death. The shadows of the past were revealing themselves, and Emily was ready to face them head-on with courage and conviction. The following days were intense for Emily, filled with discoveries and careful strategizing. With the help of Mark, the private detective, she began to connect the dots between the suspicious transactions and Jack's accident. Each new clue reinforced her determination to seek justice and protect Ethan from any imminent threats. As Emily continued her investigation, Victor contacted her again, this time with information that could be crucial. They met in a discreet cafe, where Victor handed her a file full of documents suggesting a conspiracy deeper than Emily had imagined. "Emily, I found some old records that show how the company's finances were manipulated," explained Victor, pushing the file across the table. "This is more than just an accident. Someone was profiting heavily from Jack's downfall." Emily flipped through the documents, feeling the enormity of the betrayal once again. "This proves Jack was on the right track. He was about to uncover something that could have destroyed many reputations," Victor agreed, his expression serious. "But you need to be careful. They know you're investigating and will stop at nothing to cover their tracks." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The threat seemed more real than ever, but she wasn't alone. She knew she could count on Victor and Mark to help her expose the culprits. Later that day, Emily met with Mark to discuss Ethan's safety. They decided to move Ethan to a more secure location, fearing he could be used as leverage against Emily. "I've arranged a safe place for him to stay, off the radar," informed Mark, adjusting his hat and looking around cautiously. "Thank you, Mark. I need to know he's safe while we continue with this," responded Emily, feeling a wave of gratitude. Mark nodded. "Don't worry. We'll keep Ethan out of harm's way." As Emily watched Ethan leave with Mark, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Ethan's hesitant smile, even amidst all this turmoil, gave Emily the strength she needed to continue. She knew that with her allies by her side, She was more prepared than ever to face the storm that was approaching. At the end of the day, Emily reviewed the file Victor had given her, highlighting important passages and organizing her notes. The complexity of the financial fraud demanded her full attention, but each piece of information was a new weapon in her arsenal against those who threatened her. She knew time was running out, but she was determined to fight for justice, not just for Jack, but for Ethan, who deserved to know the truth about his past. With Ethan safe, Emily focused on gathering the last pieces of the puzzle. The pressure was intense, but she knew she was close to a breakthrough that could change everything. That afternoon, while reviewing documents in her office, she noticed that the car that had been following her had returned. The figure inside the car was a constant presence, a reminder that danger was always lurking. Emily decided to take action. She grabbed her phone and called Mark, asking him to meet her to discuss their next steps. "We have to confront this head-on, Mark. We can't let them intimidate us," stated Emily, determination burning in her eyes. Mark agreed, his voice calm and professional. "I'll take care of it. They won't get away." Later that night, Mark confirmed that the car had disappeared, but had left behind a clear message. A mysterious envelope placed in Emily's mailbox. Inside, it was a veiled threat, warning her to stop her investigation. Emily was not intimidated. Instead, the warning fueled her desire for justice. She knew they were getting desperate, and that meant she was on the right track. As she analyzed the contents of the envelope, Victor called with a new lead. He had discovered a contact within the company who was willing to talk, but only under conditions of anonymity. Emily prepared to meet the informant, knowing this could be her chance to finally expose the whole truth. The night was dark, and the cold air cut through her skin as she walked to the meeting point, aware that this was a decisive moment. At the designated location, an old warehouse, she met the informant, a nervous and hurried figure. He provided documents detailing how the funds were diverted and who was behind it all. "They are closer than you think, Emily. Be careful who you trust," warned the informant, before disappearing into the shadows. The warning echoed in her mind as she reviewed the documents, getting closer to unmasking the network of corruption that led to Jack's downfall. The shadows of the past were about to be illuminated, and Emily was determined to reveal the whole truth. As she headed home, Emily couldn't help but think about how intricate and dangerous Jack's world had become before his death. The lies and betrayals were deep, and she knew she would need all her courage and cunning to face what was next. The truth was near, and Emily would not back down now. Emily felt on the verge of a revelation, the tension mounting with each new discovery. The documents provided by the informant shed light on the corrupt activities Jack was about to expose. Each line and figure told a story of manipulation and greed that culminated in tragedy. That morning, as the sun struggled to break through Seattle's dense clouds, Emily organized the documents on her living room table. Determination burned within her as she prepared a dossier to present to the authorities. She knew she was stirring up a hornet's nest, but the pursuit of justice for Jack and the safety of Ethan propelled her forward. Determined not to let the culprits escape, Emily arranged a meeting with a trusted journalist, someone she knew could help responsibly expose the truth. They met in a discreet cafe, away from curious eyes. "Thank you for meeting me, Emily," said the journalist, setting up the recorder on the table. "I've read the documents you sent me. If this is true, it's one of the biggest corruption stories I've ever seen." Emily nodded, her expression solemn. "It's true, and I need it to be brought to light. Jack was close to uncovering everything when the accident happened." "Are you aware of the risks?" asked the journalist, looking into Emily's eyes. "I am, but I'm willing to take those risks to bring the truth to light," Emily responded, her conviction leaving no room for doubt. The journalist paused, reflecting on the seriousness of the situation. "Do you have a contingency plan in case they try to interfere?" Yes, I'm working with a detective and some allies. We're preparing for anything, explained Emily, her resolve clear. After the meeting, Emily met with Mark to discuss the next steps. They were determined to ensure the documents reached the authorities before the culprits could react. We need to act fast. They're probably already aware of what we're doing, said Mark, as they reviewed the plan they had outlined together. We need to make sure Ethan stays safe. They might try to use him against us, added Emily, the concern evident in her voice. As they talked, Emily received an unexpected call. It was Victor, and his voice carried a sense of urgency. Emily, I've discovered something. I need you to come here now, he said without going into detail. Feeling that the final piece of the puzzle was about to be revealed, Emily hurried to meet Victor. The truth was so close she could almost touch it, and she was determined not to let anything stop her from finally bringing down those responsible for Jack's downfall. Emily arrived at the agreed location with Victor, a conference room in an almost deserted office building. Upon entering, she found Victor surrounded by stacks of papers and an open laptop displaying a detailed presentation of the frauds and corruption network. Emily, I found the final connection. It's deeper than we thought, said Victor, pointing to the screen. Emily approached, examining the evidence Victor had compiled. This is more than enough to bring them all down, Victor. We need to take this to the police now. I agree, but we need to be careful. They will try to stop us, warned Victor, his expression grim. Before they could leave the room, they heard hurried footsteps in the corridor. The door burst open, revealing a familiar figure. The man who had been following Emily, now revealed as one of the accomplices in the scheme. You think you can just expose all this? Said the man, his voice dripping with contempt. You can't stop what's already started. Emily's heart raced, but Victor's presence by her side made her feel less vulnerable. We will expose everything. You can't keep hiding this, Emily replied, her voice steady. The confrontation intensified, with the man trying to intimidate them. But Emily and Victor stood firm. They knew they had the advantage of truth and the evidence they had gathered. You have no idea who you're up against, threatened the man, his gaze cold. Maybe you don't know how far we're willing to go, Emily retorted, determination shining in her eyes. In an unexpected move, Victor triggered the building's emergency alarm, causing the man to hesitate. The shrill sound echoed through the corridors, alerting security. Let's get out of here while we can, said Victor, grabbing the laptop and documents. Emily and Victor quickly escaped, leaving the man behind as authorities arrived. They knew they had little time to act before the corruption network tried to cover its tracks again. With the documents in hand, they headed straight to the police station, determined to ensure that justice finally prevailed. They knew the fight was not over yet, but the hope for justice for Jack and safety for Ethan was closer than ever. As they waited to be seen at the station, Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The fight for justice for Jack, the challenge of protecting Ethan, and the uncovering of the truth about the accident. She was determined to see it through to the end. At the police station, Emily and Victor anxiously awaited their turn to hand over the evidence to the authorities. The tension in the air was palpable, but there was also a sense of hope. They knew they were close to finally exposing the entire truth about the corruption network that had led to Jack's downfall. The detective in charge of the case, a man named Lieutenant Rodriguez, welcomed them into his office. He looked at the pile of documents with interest and concern. Is this really as serious as you claim? Asked Rodriguez, flipping through the papers. Yes, it is, Emily replied firmly. Jack was about to expose this fraud before he died. These documents prove what he was investigating. Rodriguez nodded, studying the evidence. I will initiate a formal investigation immediately. You did the right thing by bringing this to us. Emily felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. Finally, she was bringing justice for Jack. However, she knew that the danger had not completely passed yet. Those involved in the corruption would not give up easily. As Lieutenant worked on the case, Emily and Victor discussed their next steps. They were determined to ensure that the story was released to the public, so the culprits could not cover their tracks. "We need to make sure everyone's safety is a priority, especially Ethan's," emphasized Victor. "I agree. I'll speak with Mark to make sure he doesn't leave his hiding place until all this is resolved," Emily responded, her voice laden with concern. The next day, the journalist Emily had met with published an explosive article, revealing details of the frauds and the conspiracy behind Jack's accident. The news spread quickly, soon becoming the main topic across all media networks. Ethan, who was safe with Mark, saw the report on television and knew that his mother was bravely fighting to expose the truth. He felt a mix of pride and gratitude, recognizing Emily's strength and courage. With public pressure mounting, those responsible began to be questioned. Emily received news that several arrests had been made, and the accomplices were starting to confess their roles in the plot. Justice was finally being served. Emily received a call from Lieutenant Rodriguez. "Emily, you can't imagine the impact your actions have had. We already have confessions that corroborate all the evidence you brought," Rodriguez informed her, his voice full of admiration. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Jack deserves this justice, and Ethan deserves the truth," Emily responded, moved. The struggle seemed worthwhile, but Emily knew there were still steps to be taken to ensure everything ended as it should. Emily reflected on the path she had taken to get here. From the moment she first met Ethan, to the painful revelation of the truth behind Jack's fall, every step had been a test of courage and determination. She was aware that the battle was not yet over, but she was ready to face any challenges that might arise. With the arrests and confessions underway, the atmosphere changed. Emily could finally breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that Jack's legacy would be cleared and that Ethan could live without the weight of a past filled with lies. The sense of justice finally being served allowed her to envision a future full of hope. In the following days, she dedicated her time to rebuilding her relationship with Ethan, helping him understand his origins and accept his true identity. Ethan was eager to learn more about Jack and the life they could have had together. "Mom, tell me more about how you and Dad met," Ethan asked one evening as they dined together. Emily smiled, recalling happier times. "We met in college. I was studying medicine and he was just starting in engineering. He always had this sparkle in his eyes, full of curiosity about the world. We connected immediately. He must have been amazing," said Ethan admiringly. "He was. And he would have been so proud of you, Ethan," Emily replied, gently touching her son's hand. "He always said he wanted you to see the world, that you had the freedom to be who you really are." One afternoon, as they walked through a sunny park, Emily and Ethan stopped to watch the children playing. The laughter of the children and the singing of birds created a perfect backdrop to reflect on the new beginning they had before them. "I wish Jack could be here to see this," said Ethan, sadness mixed with acceptance in his voice. "He would be so proud of you, Ethan. You are strong, just like him," Emily replied, placing an arm around Ethan's shoulders. "And he will always be with us, in every step we take." "I'm ready to move on, Mom. We can leave the past behind now," said Ethan, smiling at her. Emily nodded, feeling that, despite all they had faced, they were finally ready for a new beginning. There was a sense of peace enveloping both of them, a promise that the future would be brighter. Later at home, Emily found a letter that Jack had written before his last trip. The letter was filled with love and hope, encouraging Emily to never give up, even when things seemed impossible. "I knew he was guiding us all along," said Emily, tears in her eyes. "What did he write?" asked Ethan, curious. Emily read aloud from the letter. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, know that my love for you and for Ethan is eternal. You are my strength and my inspiration. Keep fighting. Keep loving. Ethan wiped away a tear that ran down his face. He really was special. I'll try to be like him. As the sun set, marking the end of a painful chapter and the beginning of a promising future, Emily, Ethan, and Olivia gathered for a peaceful dinner at home, celebrating the peace and justice finally achieved. I'm so glad we've overcome this together, said Olivia, raising her glass in a toast. To us and to all that the future holds, Emily replied, smiling. We have so much to be thankful for, added Ethan, looking at the two women who had become his anchors. Life slowly returned to normal, but now there was a clarity and a deeper connection among them all. The journey had been tough, but Emily knew that Jack would always be present in their hearts, guiding them every step of the way. You know, I was thinking, began Ethan with a thoughtful expression. Maybe we could take a trip together, as a family. Something Dad would have liked to do with us. That sounds like a wonderful idea, replied Emily, excited. Let's plan that. It will be a perfect way to honor him and celebrate our new life. The promise of a new adventure filled the house with hope and excitement, a reminder that life, despite its challenges, always offers new opportunities to start anew and love. If you were moved by this story of courage and resilience, share this video with friends and family. Subscribe to our channel for more moving and inspiring stories that reveal the power of love and truth. Leave your comments below and tell us about your personal experiences of overcoming injustice. Your voice matters.